All right, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are taking a really deep dive into the science of what makes us tick. If you've ever found yourself just staring at a never-ending to-do list, wondering how on earth you're going to get things done, when you'd really rather not, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to unpack the surprisingly complex psychology of motivation.
But first, let's be totally honest with ourselves for a second here. Would you rather be watching Netflix and eating a bag of Doritos right now? It is perfectly okay to say yes to that. The urge to just choose the couch and some junk food over our pressing goals, that's a universal, everyday human experience. Literally all of us feel it.
We face this daily struggle constantly, right? Choosing what we should do over what we actually want to do in the moment. But I want to reframe this for you right out of the gate. This whole relatable struggle, it is not a sign of personal failure. It's not you just being lazy. It's actually a very complex psychological puzzle. And in this explainer, we're going to use the science of psychology to solve that exact puzzle together.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the daily motivation struggle.
You know exactly what these common battles look like. It's forcing yourself to finish that incredibly boring work project. It's dragging yourself to the gym, again, or trying to stick to a really strict diet. Pushing through these things requires a very specific, complex psychological tool, motivation. But just like the people who rely on it, motivation itself is highly complicated.
Which brings us to Section 2, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation.
So, to really understand motivation, we've got to look at the baseline difference between what comes from deep within you versus what comes from your outside environment. On one side, we have intrinsic motivation. Those are internal drives. And on the other side, we have extrinsic motivation, our external drives. Understanding the difference between these two is absolutely crucial. It's the key to unlocking your productivity.
Let's start with intrinsic motivation. This is the drive that comes from internal factors. It basically means doing something simply because you find it inherently fun, interesting, or meaningful. Think of it as your internal engine. When you're intrinsically motivated, the task itself actually feels rewarding all on its own. No prize, no grade, no bonus required. You just want to do it. But then, on the flip side, we have extrinsic motivation. This is when you're driven entirely by external factors. You're doing something because you're getting paid, or because you're following orders, or maybe you're just seeking praise and positive feedback from other people. It relies heavily on outside forces to get you to actually take action.
And that leads us right into Section 3, the problem with rewards. Now, logically, you might think extrinsic motivators would be the most effective, right? I mean, what could possibly be a better reward than money? We generally assume that cold, hard cash is the absolute ultimate way to get things done. But most psychological research actually proves that this simply isn't the case. In fact, relying too much on external rewards can be a massive trap.
Despite what we usually assume, science proves that internal drive is what actually fuels long-term commitment. Individuals driven by intrinsic motivations plant way deeper roots, and they are much more likely to stick with tough goals. Studies show they're more likely to keep exercising, successfully quit smoking, or perform significantly better in school than those who are just driven by compliments, money, or a teacher's praise. External rewards eventually fade away, but internal drive, that endures.
And here's a massive, totally counterintuitive reality when it comes to creativity. Providing people with extrinsic motivators, like money, may actually hamper creative thinking. It can literally make them worse at tasks that require problem solving. It is wild to think about, but dangling cash in front of someone can actually kill their out-of-the-box thinking. Sometimes, external pressure just completely shorts out the creative process.
All right, moving on to Section 4, finding the fun factor.
So how do we actually put this into practice? First, you've got to figure out what your intrinsic motivations actually are. You have to let your own inner light guide your goals. Ask yourself, what do you genuinely like? What do you think is actually interesting? What do you find meaningful? You have to interrogate your own preferences and let those internal answers dictate how you set things up.
Here's a really practical example. Let's say your goal is to exercise more often. You are far more likely to stick with it if you do a type of exercise you genuinely think is fun. Instead of just trudging along on a boring treadmill, which feels like a total chore, try out a dance class, sign up for a volleyball league, or just go play frisbee with your friends. Reframing the goal from a chore into a fun activity dramatically increases your chances of actually sticking with it long term.
And get this, it's absolutely fascinating. Studies have actually shown that people who consider an activity as fun rather than strictly exercise are less likely to compensate afterwards with snacks and desserts.
This surprising result shows that simply changing how you label a task prevents self-sabotage later on. Finding a fun physical activity improves your health in multiple, compounding ways.
Now I hear you. It can definitely be harder to find that intrinsic motivation at work, but you have to actively cultivate it. Focus on what you actually like about your job. Does your company work on issues that are important to you? Do you enjoy being helpful to your coworkers? Do you get a thrill out of solving complex problems? Finding those answers can really help you grow that internal drive and push through a particularly boring or difficult task at the office.
Let's move to our final section, Section 5, Catching the Motivation Bug.
If you are still having trouble finding that internal spark, well, there's a fascinating scientific loophole for you. Motivation is actually contagious. You don't have to rely entirely on yourself. Psychological science shows that drive and energy easily rub off on us from the people we choose to surround ourselves with.
There was this one really fascinating study where students were taught by an instructor that they believed was either volunteering, meaning they were intrinsically motivated, or paid, meaning they were extrinsically motivated. The students who were taught by the volunteer showed significantly greater interest and persistence in the activity. It's crazy, but when you're around someone who is internally driven, their passion and persistence literally transfer over to you.
So, you can actually increase your own motivation by actively hacking your surroundings right now. If you're struggling, put yourself in a highly motivated environment. Hit a crowded gym where people are clearly focused. Join a dedicated study group, or set up in a busy, energized co-working space. Go out there and catch that motivation bug from the driven people around you.
Okay, let's wrap this whole thing up with 3 core actionable steps. Number 1, focus on your intrinsic motivations. Look for the fun and the meaning. Number 2, surround yourself with other highly motivated people. And number 3, use these exact tools to power through your tasks and stick to those long-term goals. Ultimately, look, we can't hack our brains to feel motivated 24/7. We're human. But by relying on these scientific principles, we definitely equip ourselves with the absolute best tools for success.
I want to leave you with this one final thought. Look at your to-do list right now. Seriously, look at it. How can you rewrite it today to focus on the fun, the meaning, and the people around you? Apply this science to your own life today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep focusing, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what you conquer next.